I'm Deborah Dahab, your expat coach and intercultural psychologist. I help people prepare for a move abroad and also help people once they have moved to adjust and to feel happy in their new country. So today I'm going to share a little bit of my experience with a reverse cultural shock, and this is also something that many of my clients have talked about, and the experiences were pretty similar. So reverse cultural shock is one of the phases of cultural adjustment that will happen if and when you go back to one of your home countries or original country, but a reference country. For me, why do I have this disclaimer? Because I've lived in 5 different countries. Each one brings me a little bit of reference, but the 2 most important in the formative years of my life were the US and Brazil. So I felt this reverse cultural shock in both countries when I went back after some years of being abroad. So a disclaimer here also, I went back on a vacation. I didn't move back. So it might be a different experience if you actually move back to one country where you have lived before. In my case, I was just on vacation in both situations. I stayed about 2 or 3 weeks each time. If you want to know more about reverse cultural shock, I will link up here somewhere the link to the video where I share the research behind it, what are these phases, and some tips on how to deal with it. Today, I'm going to share a little bit of my experience. So, reverse cultural shock is the name is pretty self-explanatory. It's what you feel when you go back to a country of reference, in my case, Brazil and the States. I can tell you that I knew what it was. I knew it would happen, but many things took me by surprise. There you go. But it was interesting to observe that I knew what was happening. So it was an interesting experience. So I felt quite a weird feeling because everything was familiar, but was strange at the same time. It's kind of hard to explain because I had known these places forever, but they were different. They were different. Sometimes restaurants had changed the menu or changed the decor, or there were the street where I had lived had new cafes and new places. So it was the same place, but at the same time, it was different. I felt a little bit of FOMO, to be honest, like, oh, all this happened and I wasn't here. So I felt a little bit of that, both with the environment and finding out new cool places that I had no idea, that existed, and also with relationships, even though I really thrive on staying in touch with good friends, there's so much you can share from a distance, and it was good to see them in person. And I also felt like, oh, you didn't tell me that, or I didn't know that happened. So a little bit of FOMO in that sense. Some of the things that were normal for me back then were strange and even annoying. So I'm going to give you an example. When in Portugal, where I live right now, where I am right now, where you go in a shop, typically people will ask you, like, can I help you, blah, 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 but they will, in general, and this is a generalization, in my experience, people will offer help, but then you're on your own and you can ask help if you want. In Brazil, I didn't feel that. I felt people like very, trying to be very, very helpful, which was great, but it felt a bit like, oh, this is too much, So I realized that my concept of personal space, my concept of what I felt comfortable with people approaching me had changed. And it was a direct change from what your baseline changes. What you're used to completely changes. And that was an interesting experience. So it gave me this strange feeling of amusement and sometimes annoyance, and sometimes like I'm from here, but I don't belong here anymore. Maybe that changes if you move back. I was on vacation, but it was like these mixed feelings of missing something, but also realizing, this is not my life anymore. So there you go. That's my experience. Other people, feel free to share your own experience with reverse cultural shock if that's something that you've been through. I'd love to hear your comments. If this resonated with you, if this is something that you would like to take the next step, feel free to book a call with me and we'll have a conversation. It's completely free. The link to schedule a call with me is in the description box. And if you're struggling with anything related to adjustment, I'm happy to listen to your story and see if and how I can help you. Worst case scenario, I'll give you some tips and ideas to deal with the challenges. So I hope this was useful, and remember to like, subscribe, and comment. I'll see you next time.